I'm going to be talking to Dr. Isabel Al-Dhahir. She's a technology analyst for IDTechEx. She has a PhD in materials science from the University of Oxford, and she's the author of a new study on perovskite photovoltaics. So welcome to the interview, Isabel.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Now, I remember years ago reading about perovskite PV, and it was going to revolutionize the solar industry. And we're not quite there yet, but it sure shows a lot of promise. So maybe let's start with, for those who aren't familiar with it, maybe a brief introduction to perovskite, please.
Sure. So the conventional photovoltaic technology is silicon-based. So the solar panels that we see on rooftops and out in solar farms, they're made using silicon as the material that absorbs the sunlight and converts it to electricity. Now, silicon-based technology is widely available. It's increasingly affordable and efficiencies are good. However, the key issues are that silicon solar panels are bulky, they're rigid, and they're heavy. Each individual panel weighs around 20-25 kilograms each. Now, perovskites, on the other hand, they belong to a certain class of photovoltaic technology called thin film. So perovskites apply very much like an ink, where the thickness of the deposited ink or film is about 100 to 1,000 times thinner than a typical silicon wafer is. And this really differentiates them from silicon. Perovskite panels can be up to 90% lighter. They can be made to be flexible. And because the perovskite cell materials are printable, the manufacturing process is much faster and simpler and is expected to lead to lower production costs. Perovskites are also very good at indoor energy harvesting, which is another shortcoming of silicon technology. And so all of these differences enable a wide range of new applications for photovoltaics.
No, my understanding, Isabel, is that we might make panels with them to replace the existing silicon solar panels, but there are other applications like applying them to windows. You put them in the body panels of a car. Is that the kind of sort of non-traditional application we're talking about?
Precisely, yes. So because they're so light, and also they can be made to be semi-transparent, which makes them less obtrusive when placed on cars or on the building facades, which are publicly exposed, they are much more suitable and ideal.
And it's fairly impressive how the technology is developed. I understand in 2009, the efficiency was 3%, but now it's progressed to 25%, which is basically on a par with your standard PV panel.
Yes, exactly. The acceleration or the acceleration efficiency gain has been remarkable, much faster than any other technology, any other PV technology, and it's testament to what it can deliver in the future. So it's a very promising technology, and it's why it's caught the industry's attention to such an extent, given its novelty.
Sure. And like everything else, promising technologies always come with challenges. And I understand that here it's a question of the stability of the perovskite material.
Yes, precisely. So perovskites are very well known to degrade following exposure to air, moisture, humidity, even UV light, which obviously when exposed in the sunlight will be exposed to UV radiation. And so this is the big question mark hovering over the commercialization of perovskite technology. The field has come a long way. So there are now methods to tune the chemical composition of the perovskite to improve its stability, to minimize distortion and strain. There are also there's also been a lot of progress in the external encapsulation to prevent water and oxygen permeating into the cell itself, to prevent external influence.
So when we say degradation, what are we talking about? If you put it on a panel out in a field, the way you normally would with a regular solar panel, over time, in a very short time, its performance would degrade?
Yes, so it's a very rapid degradation that's observed. And it's normally decomposition. So the perovskite layer will decompose and it will change its conductivity entirely. And then there are lots of different mechanisms of degradation, which are still being studied because it's such a new technology. The pathways are not 100% understood. But yes, it will ultimately lead to decomposition.
Now, there are a number of companies, I understand, that are getting close to commercialization. Can you tell us something about those?
Sure. So the one which looks to be very close to commercialization is Oxford PV, a UK-based company. They're working on something called Perovskite on silicon tandem, which is where a perovskite cell is placed above a silicon cell to work together and so absorbs a greater or converts a greater proportion of the visible light spectrum. You can get ultra high efficiency solar cells. So they're hoping to deliver panels with around 27% efficiency, which is higher than anything else available on the market. And that's expected, it's expected to launch in about 2023, ideally, if no delays occur. Other companies are Sol Technology. This is a Polish company working on embedding very small sort of mini panels into electronics, so self-powered electronics that work under indoor light. So there's a broad range of different markets that it's catering to, and we should see some commercialization in the next few years.
Now, Isabel, if I was President Biden, I would be paying particular attention to perovskite because there's the last couple of years in particular, we've seen a big concern about the geopolitics around supply chains. China absolutely dominates the manufacturing of solar panels. That's a big concern for Europe and North America. And this seems to be a technology that maybe would help an economy, like the North American economy, leapfrog over the advantage that China currently has. Are those considerations?
It certainly is. I think the key issue is the stability question. If we can deliver high efficiencies like silicon that last for 25 years, yes, that could be a serious contender in the industry. Because it's low cost, it's simple to produce, doesn't require any rare or expensive raw materials. So it could be a serious contender. But I think I don't think we're going to be seeing mass production of perovskites in the next few years. It's going to take time. And I imagine silicon is still going to be the predominant technology for years to come.
Well, let's talk about that time frame a little bit. When you say years to come, we've got the companies you mentioned are coming into the market in the next year or two or three. So say between now and 2025, we've got some special applications, very specific applications. What would it take? I mean, obviously we have to, the problem around degradation has to be solved, but assuming that can be solved in some way, is this an industry that can scale up very rapidly?
I believe yes, it could, because it relies upon very standard equipment, printing equipment, which is common across the printed or flexible electronics industry. It does have the potential to scale up quickly. There are very few players at the moment, and it does require specialist know-how. So by the time more companies enter the mix, understand how to make durable, highly efficient perovskite solar cells, that might take time. And that's why I do believe it's a few years away that we'll see a mass volume production.
Right. So we've got a couple of companies, one in UK, one in Poland. But is this a sector like a startup sector that is still quite small? There are only a limited number of players, a limited number of startups that are attempting to commercialize this?
Yes, exactly. There are perhaps about fewer than 10 that I know of that are working on this. The long-standing traditional silicon industry has not expressed that much interest in transitioning towards perovskite technology, which is why it's a very startup-focused industry.
Great. Well, Isabel, thank you very much for this. Really appreciate your insights.
Thank you.